Welcome to Issues. This week we have with us Ed Sousa, President and General Manager of the Consumer Products Division of Butterfield and Vallis. This week we're going to see how our food, how does it come into Bermuda? What if there was a strike? Would we all starve? Let's go to Ed and ask him some of those questions. Hi Ed, happy to have you with us.
Good evening, Richard. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Let's go back to the very beginning. How was Butterfield and Vallis? Who started it and when was it started?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. The company's been in existence really for about 90 years. We started in 1923. It was founded by Harry St. George Butterfield, who is the grandfather of our present owner, James Butterfield. And we're actually in transition at the moment, moving towards fourth generation ownership with Jim's son Spencer.
So this is primarily, has been and remains a family-owned business.
Absolutely, yes.
Very good. Now, how many employees are employed by your company?
We have roughly 200 employees, and we are one company. We operate from two facilities. There's the facility at Woodlands Road, which services and deals with primarily the hotels and restaurants or the food service business. At Orange Valley, which is where I am located, the Consumer Products Division, we deal with the supermarkets and grocery stores. So roughly there are about 200 people, as you said, and about 50-50 split between the two divisions.
The supermarkets and grocery stores, would you know about how many of those do you service?
In total, Butterfield and Vallis has about 900 customers. We would have in the area of 200 retail operators. You could have anything from the convenience store and a gas station operation to the larger supermarkets that we have.
Now, being that you are wholesalers, do you sell to individuals or just to stores and other large organizations?
Really, it's commercial organizations that are our customers. We are really extensions of manufacturers, and so we service the supermarkets, grocery stores, the institutions, and they in turn pass along to the consumer.
Buyers, do you, Butterfield and Vallis, do they have buyers in other countries? And if they do, are they worldwide? Your buyers, are they all over the world?
Well, in a way, we have about 300 suppliers, so in a way they are our buyers. And we have our own teams of buyers who work with our suppliers. And we're constantly trying to ferret out new products and stay on the cutting edge of food trends as they develop.
Now, something that will be important to all of us, God forbid, but let's say there is a strike in the U.S., a dock strike, and the container ships cannot come. Let's say there's a strike in Bermuda, and there's no one on the docks. Now, how long of a supply would Butterfield and Vallis have to give to the stores so we as consumers could go and buy our food?
Yeah. Well, that's a difficult question to answer. Obviously, the perishable foods would run out of stock pretty quickly. So things like produce, vegetables and fruits, within 2 weeks we'd have virtually nothing on hand. Then the canned goods, we'd probably, as a community, we could survive for maybe 5 or 6 weeks before things began to get pretty desperate. It is important. We have 3 ships that come to Bermuda faithfully, 2 from New Jersey, 1 out of Port Elizabeth, and the other one out of Salem, New Jersey. And then the 3rd ship comes from down south, Fernandina Beach in Florida. Recently, we experienced some effect from Hurricane Sandy that shut down the ports up north. And in fact, we did for a week have to rely on the ship from Florida. So having 3 ships is a real benefit to a small, isolated community like Bermuda.
Right. So if there's a problem with one, like you just indicated, you have 2 others, and your suppliers might even be able to send some of their supplies to some of the other docks, so they could come over here. So you're saying for about 4 or 5 weeks we won't starve, but a little bit after that we might start to feel hungry.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, we hear a lot about buy Bermuda, don't go overseas, buy here. Could you tell us how can we be more intelligent shoppers in terms of our buying our food, or not only just our food, whatever we want to buy, how can we be better intelligent shoppers?
Well, I think there are two different questions
Okay.
you've asked there. If I'll address the sort of buy Bermuda one
Okay.
first. Buy Bermuda really is a philosophy that's very important to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
We all have seen what's happened in the recession and the stores that have closed down on Front Street, giving us less opportunities to go and to purchase goods. If we continue to not buy Bermuda, then the consequences are going to be pretty serious. The business community in this recession is suffering just as much as individuals are, and we don't go long without finding a story, an article in the paper that says another business is closed, and so it needs our support. I think the theme more recently has become shop locally,
Mm-hmm.
and we certainly do as much of that as we can as a company. We try as much as we can to support local goods and supporters.
Yeah. Now, just diverting from the second part of my question to this, when those container ships come in, are the goods moved directly from the dock to the stores, the marketplace, the lindos, or do they go to the warehouse first and then from the warehouse out to the stores?
It's a little bit of both. There are some situations where full containers will come to the docks and it would contain some of our products and it might go to the larger supermarkets. But by and large, the majority of products do go from the docks to our warehouses and then they're stored there and delivered in ensuing weeks to satisfy our customers' orders.
Yeah. You mentioned the large supply of inventory that you have, and you mentioned about 250 employees. Now, in this time of recession, I think something that our viewers might be interested in, are there any openings that you may know of presently at Butterfield and Vallis?
Well, the openings these days are few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
We do post any openings on our website, www.bv.bm. And as well as there's the application there. If anyone was interested in filling it out, we could keep an application on file. But in my years in the food business, and I've been at Butterfield and Company for about 35 years, I've never really seen it quite like this, where the turnover has come to a trickle, really. People appreciate their jobs, and we just don't have the turnover that we've seen in previous years.
Yeah. Now, something that I'd like to get into a little bit in my research. By the way, before I do that, I was reading a magazine where it indicated that Butterfield and Vallis were about number 6 or number 7 in terms of some of the better employers here on the island. Do you remember exactly what number you guys were?
Well, over the last several years, we've been all over the board. We've ranged from number 1 in 2010, and I think we've been number 4 twice, and the last one we were number 8.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nice record to have.
Yes, it certainly is. Now, there was a report done, I think, by HSBC, might have been one of their employers, a lady whose last name is Africa. In that report, she mentioned that Butterfield and Vallis, one of the things that your company do, will hire ex-offenders and ex-drug addicts. How did your company determine to do that? Because it seemed like it's a big risk.
Yeah, I said earlier that I've been here 35 years, and I can remember when I started, the general manager at the time, he would arrive at work with someone he picked up from the street down. So it is a rich tradition that we've enjoyed and one that we continue. So yeah, we try to help a lot of the organizations with rehabilitating those individuals who require it. One of the tools that we use to assist us is our drug-free workplace policy, which we instituted in 2001. And that's been a big assist to us, and it's helped people to sort of integrate themselves back into society. I can recall about 8 years ago, I was interviewing an individual who was about to be released on probation, and he was there with one of the officers from Westgate. And when I asked him what he had been imprisoned for, he said for drug use or drug dealing. And so I said, well, you understand that we have a drug-free workplace policy? And he said, yes, that's why I want to come here, because I need that structure to help to keep me on the straight and narrow. And he's still with us today, and I'm always proud to see him and pleased with his progress.
Very good. Now, in your drug testing, do the individuals know when they will be drug tested, or is it done randomly?
For the most part, it is done randomly, and it's a statistical sort of program. We test statistically the number of employees that we have a year, and that's done on a monthly random basis. Our EAP providers work with us on that, and they're the ones who administer the selection. And so every month we have roughly 20 individuals who come in to be tested. When we started it, it would not be unusual to have perhaps 25% test positive. Today it's few and far between. Yeah. So personally, I think the entire management team at Butterfield and Vallis believes that it's an excellent tool to help to manage people.
I believe you folks have a 3-strike policy, and it's not baseball.
Yeah, that's right. If you're an employee and you do test positive, then we employ what we call a 3 strikes policy. On the first strike, the individual is advised to go to counseling with our EAP and to make a serious decision between their lifestyle and their employment. And they're given to on the 3rd strike if that comes about. And that's been a long time since we've seen that. Then we do part company.
I see your company in terms that they're reaching out for their employees, they're taking care of their employees, they're looking at what is best for the employees. Has this been a traditional mark, or has this come up through the history of Butterfield and Vallis, where they're so caring and so understanding for their employees?
I think so, but today we've advanced to the point where we'll see things like a wellness program that we administer for the staff, and there are incentives that help the staff to enjoy a healthier lifestyle, and we will sponsor them if they want to participate in any of the races or events that take place. And there are any number of things that we'll do today that just wasn't done 20 or 30 years ago, but we try and keep up with the times.
Yeah. I can see why your company has been one of the top employers here in Bermuda, because of your ability to reach out to your employees. We are talking with Ed Sousa of Butterfield and Vallis, and we'll be right back to talk some more about food. Welcome back to Issues. Today we're talking with Ed Sousa, President and General Manager of the Consumer Product Division of Butterfield and Vallis. Oh, a mouthful there. Let's find out about the food. Ed, I look in the paper, or when I'm in the States, I look in the paper and I see a lot of coupons. Sometimes on the internet, I get a lot of coupons, and you can take it into the store and redeem it for less of a price. Butterfield and Vallis, do they do anything like that, or?
Coupons really haven't been a factor in Bermuda at all, and a lot of the reason for that is the administration that goes on behind the scenes. So in Bermuda, the retailers and the distributors, they've worked through different avenues. You'll see a lot of features going on. Wednesday 5% off, which is a very economical way to purchase one's groceries. We at Butterfield and Vallis, and some of the other distributors as well, we lean towards what we call redemptions. So you bring in labels, and you win an opportunity to you'll have an opportunity to win a television set or a trip to Disney World or something like that. So there's a lot of marketing that goes on to help to sell food, but it doesn't include the coupons.
Yeah, okay. Now, I must look out some more. In fact, I got to go home and tell my wife, listen, we can not coupon, but everybody know about the 5% discount days in terms of the stores, but we look out for some of these additional things so we can save money on our groceries. Now, Butterfield and Vallis, about how many different food products do you guys bring in?
We would have, on our list, we'd have probably in excess of 8,000, perhaps up to 9,000 products in total. That's not to say that every single one of them we warehouse. We probably warehouse in the area of 5,000 of those items. The rest would be brought in on special order. A lot of perishables, highly perishable product, we wouldn't store. It's ordered and brought in to order. So something like fresh poultry would fly in or bring in by sea, and it gets delivered right to the customer. We don't store it.
Okay. You mentioned fly in. Earlier we talked about the container ships, and you mentioned the 3 ports, but Butterfield and Vallis, some special order they actually have to fly in?
Yeah, we'll do goods, perishable goods from the United Kingdom. We'll bring in produce from the United States by air. So yeah, that is an avenue that's open to us, but obviously it's not as cost effective as by sea. So as much as possible, we bring in by sea because the freight rate is much more reasonable. And but for specialty items, we'll certainly fly it in. I can recall probably in the early 90s, but the early 90s, there was a dock strike in Bermuda, and we did. Particularly for tourists, we were very conscious that we had tourists on the island, and they needed access to fresh lettuce and tomatoes and that kind of stuff. So we actually chartered an airplane about 3 or 4 times to bring in an air freighter to bring in foodstuffs, and we descended on the airport and loaded our trucks down at the airport. Yeah.
You mentioned the UK, bringing some things in from the UK. Now. The UK, the United States, and Canada. Which one of the countries would Butterfield and Vallis, would you get most of your products from?
Undoubtedly, it's the United States. Its proximity. We are, in many ways, so exposed to the U.S. culture. We're very familiar with what's being advertised and used in the United States. So about 75% of the imports actually to Bermuda, not just to Butterfield and Vallis, but to Bermuda, come from the United States.
Mm-hmm. And then would Canada be next, or the UK? Which?
Yeah, they'd be close. I couldn't say right now overall which of the two, but Canada is there, the United Kingdom is there.
Okay. Now, I can imagine there are quite a few individuals that live in Bermuda who are from the UK. Do you have the Butterfield and Vallis? Is there a special area, special section in your warehouse that would cater to some of these individuals in terms of food that is brought in? I think what I'm asking, in terms of determining which food you bring in, say, from the UK, is there some kind of canvassing you would do of the population from the UK to say, listen, if we brought this in, we can be sure it would sell? Or your buyers in the UK, are they the ones that are just determining what you guys bring in?
No, a lot of it is public demand, and that public demand can come into us through the retailers. We begin to get requests, and then we begin to put our antenna out and bring in what we can. We are somewhat married to many of the people that we do business with. So to some degree, if it's not available through some of our suppliers, then we may not be able to get it. But on the other hand, it could come in through another distributor.
Okay. Now, I don't know if you want to answer this question. In terms of determining your price, I know that there are some stores in Bermuda, they may have someone go to store X and say, oh, they're selling butter for this. So maybe at our store Y, we could sell it for a little bit less. So is your price kind of determined like that? Competitiveness?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Bermuda is a very competitive market.
Yeah.
I think we talked earlier. I think we sell to about 25 retailers,
Yeah.
so they're going to be very competitive, and they hold our feet to the fire.
Oh.
And the consumer's always looking for the best deal that they can.
Yeah.
So but in terms of competition, we'll look at if a 20-ounce bottle of the competitor's water is $1, how much is ours, and can we compete with them? And if we can compete with them, we try to bring it in.
Yeah.
So it's a very competitive market, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, some things that affect pricing, I think, would be your shipping, bringing it here by ship. Air would be more expensive if you brought it in by air. So while there are times that people complain about the high prices in Bermuda, probably if they took a look behind the scene, they would see that the companies that bring it in, you folks are actually paying quite a bit also to bring that food in, and our salaries in Bermuda are a bit higher than some other places, so we can see some justification in terms of some of the high prices that we have. But I think competition is the key. We may need more wholesale places so the prices can be kept down a little bit. Let me wind up by asking just a few questions concerning your reintegration program of ex-offender. Your employees, your present employees, what has been their view in terms of bringing in drug abusers and ex-offenders? Or maybe it's done anonymously and they don't even know who these individuals are.
It's absolutely done anonymously, but Bermuda is a small place and people know these things. But the staff are very supportive. We do limit the number that we sort of bring in at any one time, so as not to overwhelm the staff. But certainly, it's tremendous support that management receives throughout the workforce.
Yeah, and again, I think as an employee there, sometimes if I was there, I might say, the person coming in, that could be my relative, that maybe even be me, so I would need to have some sympathetic ear and some understanding with these people that are there. Again, we want to thank you. We've been talking to Ed Sousa, by the way, who I had the opportunity of meeting several weeks ago, and I understand he's a photographer, so maybe we'll discuss some things about photography when we're off air. But Ed Sousa is President and General Manager of the Consumer Product Division of Butterfield and Vallis, and we've been very happy to have him. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about the food and how it comes into Bermuda when you go to your favorite supermarket and buy it off the shelf. Thank you for joining Issues, and we'll see you again next time.